Wednesday, February 29, 2012. Lesson 5 of Tanya with Rabbi Yarden Blumstein.
We've been working through the Tanya. The Tanya is a work that focuses on one's spiritual makeup. This is what it is. It works on the build-up and spiritual makeup of our inner selves and explains who and what we are. The Tanya is written by the Alter Rebbe, the first Chabad Rebbe, with the aspect of truth ingrained entirely into it. I heard a class recently about someone who said that there's those who say everything has to be logical, but logic is not the same thing as saying everything has to be truthful, because logic is one's own mind, and one's own mind at the end of the day will take them wherever they want to go. Truthful is beyond one's own mind. It doesn't have to be according to make sense in order to be true. True is beyond logic. Logic is formed by people's views. Like, this obviously makes sense because look at it. Look at the outcome of it. Truth is not look at the outcome of it. Look at where we are right now. An example of that would be that this person who wrote this, the Alter Rebbe, had someone who opposed him. A group of people, they were, in Hebrew it's misnagdim, which means opposers. They opposed his new outlook, his new view, and they challenged him in many ways and his contemporaries in many ways, including physically. And his contemporaries made a board of people to fight against this group, in other words, to respond to the attack. And one of the things they were going to do was make a spiritual ban on the leader of the group, which in essence would, first of all, hurt the person physically, but would remove from them belief in God. They would struggle with belief in God. And what this spiritual group was hoping to accomplish was to just get rid of the oppressors. In other words, you guys are constantly attacking us. We're going to put doubt within you that'll make you guys lose the focus of attacking us, because you'll be working on yourselves. You'll be struggling with yourselves. And they came to this person who wrote this Tanya, the Alter Rebbe, and they asked him to be the leading force in this spiritual band because he was the spiritual giant. And he said, that's not truthful. In other words, that's not, according to truth, there's no way I can do that to somebody. Yes, he's hurting me, and that's wrong. And logically, I should respond to him, but truthfully, I cannot do that. And instead, actually, he suffered for many years because of that. So this is the truth. In other words, this book is founded on truth beyond logic. It's not in a way that truth will hurt, or truth is not, it's not just, it will help us spiritually, but truth is something that doesn't just logically help us. It's something that's beyond logically helping us. It's the truth, and therefore we do it. He, for example, we spoke about this, took his wedding dowry and gave the entire thing away to poor because he said, truthfully, they need the money. Logically, I could use the money, but truthfully, they need the money. He turned down a post he was offered when he was moving to a town to become the rabbi of a town. He got offered many posts with tons of financial backing. In other words, you move to our town, we'll give you this amount. You move to our town, give you that amount. And one town said, you grew up in our town and we supported you. So we have no money to support you now, but you owe us a favor. And that's the town he went to because truthfully, that's where he belonged. So he suffered physically many times because of his truth. But overall, that helped him. In other words, obviously, overall, truth helps beyond logic. And this is what he talks about. Now, what we're starting to do, just to give the framework of what we're doing, is we're identifying, he's asking in the makeup of a person. A lot of times we say there's an evil soul and a positive soul. We say there's an evil inclination and a positive inclination. And then there's people that are righteous, people that are wicked, and people somewhere in the middle. This is how he starts off. And seemingly, if we ask ourselves, that means is there's people that do more good than bad. This is positive. People that do more bad than good. This is evil. And people that fall somewhere in the middle. This is middle people. And he said this seemingly doesn't make any sense. For multiple reasons, he quotes some places. But then overall, this is too simplistic to be, like, what is the purpose in that messaging? Yes, to the outside world, that's the way you measure people. But to yourself, that's the way you measure yourself. If I did a few more good deeds than bad deeds, then I'm a good person. And he said, really, the way one should look at themselves is that these are inclinations. Everyone has positive inclinations and negative inclinations. There's no evil devil inside of them. They have inclinations that turn them towards animalistic traits. And for some people, the positive is much stronger than this animalistic. So for them, it's easy to be righteous. For some people, the animalistic is so much stronger than the positive. For them, the outcome is generally negative. And for most people, it's an equal battle. These measures are equal. And the only question is, what is the outcome? And this is what he starts defining. So he's defining as there's animalistic traits and there's godly traits. And these traits are our tendencies. And we choose our outcome. We choose our outcome. Which in essence means our soul is neutral. If you take an atom is made of electrons, neutrons, and protons, which are negative forces, positive forces, and neutral forces. In essence, our being, who we are, we define ourselves, is the neutral being inside of us. And then there's positive forces and negative forces inside us that try to get us to decide things. And our outcome is who we are. So every person has, or if they're righteous, they have less evil tendencies or no evil tendencies. If they're evil, it could be they have less positive tendencies. But most of us fall in the middle, that we have equal tendencies and we have to decipher how to listen to them. And what he's going to do, where we're holding now, is he starts to define the makeup of the animal soul first. Now we define it as an animal soul because animals, generally, the way it's explained, at least according to Chassidus, is beings that look for themselves. They are the center of the universe. Everything about an animal is for the animal. If it's caring for its young, it's because it's young. You can say it's altruistic. You could say that it's, in other words, this is its continuation, so it's caring, but it's all about itself. An animal wants to eat, and it wants to sleep, it wants to go to the bathroom. It's very for itself. It's not negative. It's about itself. And the animal tendency within us is something about ourselves. It's our self-focus. Our godly tendency is what makes us different, is the ability for us to move beyond ourselves and look at something greater than ourselves, or something a step beyond ourselves. Can an animal give up its life for a cause? Animals can give up their lives for their young. Dogs can give up their lives for their owners. Can they give up their lives for a cause beyond that? I would assume not. I would assume that animals cannot say that the right thing to do here is to die, because that's not an animalistic nature. Humans can. Humans can make a right decision. Not that animals make wrong decisions, but humans can make a decision that goes beyond logic. They can make a truthful decision. And that comes from the godly side of things. And also he's going to explain is, where do the animal soul, so to speak, place itself? Where do these animal tendencies place itself? In the heart. Where does the godly tendencies place itself? In the mind. And why is that? Because the godly tendency uses the mind to understand things. The animal soul uses the heart to feel things. In other words, if you use your heart to feel things, then you can warp your mind around your feelings. You can get your logic to work around your feelings. The godly says, let's define certain aspects as truth. We'll understand them as truth. And then we'll get our feelings to attach to them. We'll get our feelings to wrap around these understandings. If we understand that it's right to give charity to the poor, so then we're going to give that amount of charity needed, and we'll let our feelings feel good about what we're giving. If we let our heart understand something, that we like our money, so then when it comes to giving charity, we're going to give, logically, we'll give a little amount because we want to take care of ourselves. These are small tendencies, but it gets bigger and bigger about how people, if they let their hearts control, will go and let logic define their, when someone really wants a piece of food in front of them, so logically it'll make sense why they should eat that piece of food. If you cut the piece of cake in half, there's no calories, because calories can't be measured in half pieces, etc. There's logical, and people convince of themselves of these truths on bigger and bigger planes. And the other way around is with the godly soul. And the terms of the animal soul is an animal soul because about oneself. And the godly soul, we call it Adam, a person. Why do we call it Adam, a person? Because it's Adam al-Elyon, it's comparable to above. It's comparable to the godly aspects above. And this is the two souls that fight to control who we are. They fight to affect who we are. Unlike fights that go on today, generally there's a peace treaty, there's a makeup, this is all out war. And the war goes on until we die. There's no peace treaty here, there's no balance. I mean, we set a balance for ourselves, but there is no balance between the two of them. They fight, and their purpose is to fight. That is what they're created to do. Their purpose is to fight against each other. this challenge, this strive is, in other words, what we experience through life, and it's also what we're supposed to experience through life. Humans are supposed to struggle in life. Humans cannot enjoy. In other words, we would not enjoy being complacent our entire life. It would be boring and dull to us. We need struggle. People can play a one-sided game all day and it's boring. You put on an opponent, it becomes fun, it becomes challenging, there's growth. The challenge we're supposed to have is working between these two souls, to deal with these two souls as they struggle, to grow from the struggle, to grow from the experience. There's really, in essence, positives to both sides. Obviously, there's positives to the godly human side, but there's positives to the animal side too. Animals have lots of positives. We have to learn how to use these things. There's nothing wrong with feelings. It's learning how to use the feelings. And we grow from this conflict, from this struggle. The trick is not to succumb to the struggle, it's to grow from the struggle. In other words, if there's a struggle and it says, you can either do the logical thing or you can do the feeling thing, then you haven't grown from that. You're succumbing to one of the signs. The trick is to grow and understand yourself and understand the different messages that are coming your way and what you can do with that. Now, I do want to say there's a third level that's not being addressed in the logic or the feelings. The third level is something that is referred to as soul stirrings. It's called Re'usa Deliba. In other words, there's an emotion you can have, which is a spiritual emotion, but it's a feeling. But it's not like the feelings we feel. In other words, if someone hears a sad story, do they enjoy the story? Well, to a certain degree, they do enjoy the stories. People enjoy, but it's not they enjoy the sadness. It's not they enjoy the bitterness of the story, the suffering of the story. But it's a bittersweet story, and they have a strong feeling from that story. If you hear about a story with a child who was courageous, and yes, they passed away, but they passed away in such a special way, and the way, and whatever the case is, it brings tears to your eyes, and you're sad, but it's a good sadness. It's a strong sadness. The strongness of that feeling is a soul feeling. You're connecting in a soul way to that story. Connecting in a soul way to the kid. So there is something about saying that, yes, you're not going to listen to your emotions. You're not going to listen to your love or your hate or your fear, but you are going to listen to your soul. In other words, there's times when people said I acted on my emotions because I knew I had to act on my emotions. There's times that I knew that my feelings were telling me, like, I love this person, I need to act on it. When it comes to loving a person, it gets very tricky. But there are times when the soul is telling us a feeling, and that's a soul feeling. And the soul feeling is the deepest connection. In other words, that's our soul talking. And that's something that we should listen to. Now, we should never mix that up with our emotions. Our emotions are more shallow. In essence, it goes emotions, intellect, and then soul feelings. So the soul feelings are deep, and they're not to be construed with our emotions. If you feel like you're getting really, really angry, it doesn't mean that your soul is telling you to get angry. You're getting really angry, and you should work on, containing that and controlling that. Now, also, every animalistic nature has more power than the godly nature. In other words, of the two, of the man and the animal that fights within us, the animal has more power. In the idea that, let's say, for example, anger. Someone struggles with anger. If they would change that over to good, it would be greater than the good found in the other soul. If they can contain that and use that, there's so much more force. If you take an ox and you can use that ox to pull your carriage, well, that's a lot more than you can pull. So to match up against an animal and a human, there's a lot more energy in an animal. And the goal is for the human soul not to defeat the animal soul, to learn how to incorporate the animal soul and use the animal soul's energies. There's a story in the Talmud told of a robber who was the best robber of the time. And one of the great rabbis met him and said, if you would become a righteous person, you would surpass the most righteous people by miles. And he was a strong man, and he was swimming in the water. He said, if that's the case, then I'll do it right now. And he lost his strength. He couldn't get out of the water. He started drowning in the water because he immediately put it into goodness. But he became a great, great sage. And this is our goal. It's not to defeat our animal tendencies. There's nothing wrong with our animal tendencies. It's to use them in a good way. In other words, everything we have is for a purpose. And sometimes we struggle with that because it's so powerful, but that's a good thing to know. If we find ourselves in a situation that we're like, why am I like this? It's not, why are you like this? Your challenges and your makeup shows you your potential, shows you where you can go. And this is the goal of the book, is to show us our potentials and show us how we can work on that, show us some of the challenges that we may face and how to overcome those. And the first thing he's doing in the first chapter is going through the makeup of, he starts off with some questions. to lead us into the topic. But then he starts going into the makeup of who we are. He goes through, also there's 4 foundations to the world, which we're going to read at the end, is water, fire, wind, and dirt. And he explains that those 4 foundations are found in everything. In other words, a person's also made up of these 4 fundamentals. And there are 4 attributes. You have laziness, you have anger. Anger is fire, which he goes through at the end, which we'll read through.
Pleasure, water, frivolity,
Yeah. Frivolity is the wind,
air.
and laziness is dirt, and they're all there. And he goes through to explain the makeup of these 4 characters, but all the character traits also have positivity. And then, after the end of this chapter, we'll move into a little bit about the godly soul. So explain this in this chapter, explain the animal soul, and the next chapter, we're explaining the godly soul. We're going to pause here.